Welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I'm Ken Walls. Coming up, I have an amazing guest. Check this out. Welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I'm Ken Walls. I'm your host, and today I have a very, very special guest on. I met this lady in San Diego when I was at the Broadcast Your Authority event, and I mean, she has an unbelievable story, and I'm just going to let her tell it. Let me welcome to the show Diane Halfman. Diane, am I saying your last name correctly?
You are, Ken. Thanks so much. Good to be here with you.
Yeah. So Diane, thank you for I've taken a sabbatical from the show for about 3 months now, and you're my first guest back. So thank you.
You got it. I'm excited that you're going to be on my show later today, and we're just having a whole marathon of conversation. So I'm glad I brought you out of the darkness.
You did. So Diane, I've heard some of your story, a very brief conversation we had at lunch during in between sessions out there, and we just we hit it off, and I'm like, all right, I got to get her on my show. So I'm excited for you to share with everybody your story because it's kind of amazing. So why don't we start with telling everybody where you were born and raised and all that stuff?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I was born and raised in San Diego, California, and which I, had a beautiful, family growing up. I had 12 years of Catholic school, so, very much middle America. Parents were there. My mom was home. Really had this great childhood, which is a very interesting kind of step that really led to my work. And I don't know if you want me just to jump into that.
Sure, go for it.
Okay. So when I went to college, being the oldest, my dad wanted me to succeed. A completely different story. My mother came from a very wealthy family, and my dad came from a very poor family. So I had, the advantage of seeing both sides of the fence, if you will. And my dad, with me being the oldest, wanted me to succeed. And as I was going into college, he told me, "Are you going to be an attorney or a doctor?" As if those were my only two choices in the world. And I knew I didn't want to go into medical. So I thought, well, legal law seems interesting. I'll do that. So I got my degree in criminal justice and started my senior year working for an attorney, only to realize that it felt like boring work to me. Now, sorry for any of the attorneys out there, but the shepherdizing and the researching and all of that was just not my path. And needed to see okay, now what am I going to do? Right. So if I'm not going into that and I have this law degree, what am I going to do? And so several of the guys I was graduating from were going into law enforcement with San Diego PD.
So wait, back up real quick. So you got a degree. You're like an attorney?
I'm not an attorney. I have a degree in criminal justice.
Oh, well, I thought you went through the whole law school and everything.
No.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Degree in criminal justice.
Okay.
So I did some teaching in public administration at state, and, I could do anything in terms of admin. It's helpful in law enforcement to actually have that. In fact, you get what's called degree pay. And so it really helps you to have more of a understanding of the profession.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So you said some of the guys you were graduating with were going into law enforcement?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. So, and that was never on my radar. That was never something I was going to look at. And I was, at the time, I was married and had 2 young children. My daughters were 2 and 3 years old. And we were ready for them to, because I had stayed home with them, and we're ready for them to start getting into preschool. And this was the time where I was going to start working, but not necessarily in that field. And I started doing, I did a couple ride-alongs, and I was intrigued by it. It was interesting. And some of the guys were encouraging me, why don't you just take the test, right, and just see what happens. And so I did, and I passed with flying colors, just coming out of college. It was like, I'm a good test taker. And one of those things is at the time we were coming off the heels of a serial killer. It was the Green River Killer that was killing women all along the coast, starting in Washington State to Seattle, down even into San Diego. And there were also a lot of copycat serial killers. So part of what was happening is he was targeting prostitutes. And so by the time I took my test and actually got in the department, it was like 3 months. And I started this whole journey of being in the academy, being on the street, working patrol, working undercover, and being exposed to this world of prostitution, because I had a pose as a prostitute, because that too, he was killing and targeting. So Ken, imagine this. I'm going from 12 years of Catholic school, being a mom of 2 small children, going into law enforcement, and kissing my children goodnight and going out and being a prostitute at night to a serial killer. This is my life.
Oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me. So, okay, I don't even know where to take this. Like, so wait, you were married?
Yes.
And your husband was like, bye, honey, have fun working a corner. Like, love you. Be careful. Yeah. Be safe out there.
Well, exactly. Not so much. And
wow.
There was actually a year time where I was in the academy, and my husband knew that I was going to go in some form of law, right? Because I was going to be an attorney.
Yeah.
We were very young at the time, and no one, I don't think we could have really prepared for the shifts and changes of going into that kind of work. And he was not prepared for that. And I was, just think of the role shifts. I mean, we look at where are we in life, and I was helping him with his business. He was a electrical contractor, and with the kids and having dinner on the table and all of those kind of things, to now doing shift work and being the only woman on my squad back then. Wow. And he was, he did not embrace that. He did not like what we were up to. I tried to include him in learning more about it, and he was just like, I can't do this. He's like, I want a divorce, and this is
wow.
Yeah. We've been married 6 years, and in all fairness, I know that I didn't see a lot of the signs that were shifting. I was just excited because it was like fun new things for me. I was in the best shape of my life. It was, people were asking more about my work than his work. And I wasn't sensitive to seeing how that impacted him and how it worked for us. And so I had just said, because once you go through the academy for a year, you actually have to be in the field for at least a year to get what's called your post accreditation, which actually gives you credit for the work that you've just done. So I'm just like, you know what, let me just get through this year so I can, have it mean something that I went through all of this training.
Yeah.
And, we can see where we go from here. Yeah. And he started to say, yeah, maybe we'll do this. And then he just said, I'm out. And he just went through pretty quick processes of that happening. And that was probably the biggest shift for me, of like, no one had been divorced in my family. I come from you work everything out. Yeah. And I was just really surprised that this was now a shift that was happening in my life. And, thank God I had bought a house across the street from my parents, and they really supported me in helping with my girls as I was working night shifts.
And so, wow. So the prostitute, like, just for anybody joining, she wasn't a prostitute. She was a law enforcement officer that was working undercover as a prostitute, or you were pretending to be,
right,
to catch a serial killer in San Diego.
Right. Yes.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's insane.
It was. And what was wild is because, I was had a pretty sheltered life and didn't really understand or have any comprehension of some of the things that were happening on the street, and even aspects that you don't learn in the academy. And, I can remember being there and asking the detectives, because basically what happens is it's a very vulnerable position, because you don't have your gun bell, you don't have a vest, you don't even have a radio, and you are relying on your detectives that are watching you, and you're through signals, letting them know like what's happening there on the street. And, there were certain things that people were asking, because, we didn't care. I mean, obviously the whole thing was about soliciting as many people as possible so that we could put them in a time and place, so that we could connect it with the crimes. We didn't care who was sleeping with who. It was more of like, why were you in a time and place that we could connect it to the crime? So there were nights I arrested like 34 men a night, just continually moving through, talking to people. And there were things that people were asking that I had to ask my detectives, like, okay, so what does that mean? What do I charge for that? What do I do with that? It was really like, talk about like on the job training in a lot of ways.
So, okay, I'm picturing, what you see in the movies. I'm assuming there were other girls in the area. Did they not like go, this woman's a cop? Like they didn't pick up on that?
What we do is when we work a certain detail, we what's called sweep the streets. So we, remove the girls who are working in the area, so that we have a certain kind of protected area, that there is law enforcement in the area that makes sure that we keep that particular area done. And
so
then we
keeps it safe.
Right, and we work out of a hotel as well. So whoever is that has done the solicitation, they're walking with me to my hotel room where the arrest team is in the inside.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so the $1 million question: did you catch the serial killer?
Well, actually, the serial killer was caught through prostitution. It wasn't our team, but he was actually arrested twice, and it was through the field interrogations and those type of arrests. It is really a helpful tool because of the elements that come to prostitution. People who are on, parole, or they're associating with known parolees or gang members. I mean, they all tend to come together. And so when we can arrest them for the type of crimes and things that are happening in an area, we can actually put people in a certain area to be able to identify that. And so it's really helpful to use that as a tool, because, yes, there's a lot of different people we talk to that, maybe they were just looking for sex, right? And it's like they kind of fall through the cracks of that. But when we can put people at a time and place, it really ties them to bigger areas and bigger crimes. And it really does have a huge dent on what's happening, because what we've found is that, whether it's a serial killer or someone who's doing an armed robbery series, or, a rape series, or any of those type of things, they tend to concentrate in an area and have clues that when you get those one or two people, it actually decreases crime on a huge level. So it makes really great impact.
We've made Breakthrough Walls history. You're literally the first person to ever talk about a serial killer on my show.
Right?
Like, what? This is crazy. I can't even believe this. Yeah. So, okay. So, wow. That is intense. And I'm just going to be me for a minute. If I was your husband, like, no, I couldn't send my wife out to work undercover as a prostitute. I get it. Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah. So, okay. So skip forward a little bit in your career, because you were in law enforcement for quite a while. What are some of the other, I'm sure, I told you when we talked that I have a ridiculous amount of friends that are in law enforcement here in Ohio. So I've heard some interesting stories, none quite as interesting as the one you just told, but so what are some other things that you went through in that career that surprised? And normally I talk a little bit more about your childhood. You were a good Catholic girl and all of that stuff, right? So Here you are now, a cop and doing crazy undercover stuff. What are some of the other things that you faced that were like shocking to you?
Right. Well, another aspect is when you think about being a police officer, you think every day is about your 911, right? And so you are answering one crisis after another, and it's not like the cat's in the tree. It's somebody got stabbed, somebody was shot, somebody was raped, and so you look at the environment that you have, and that is your everyday experience. And I just have so much respect for my anybody who are first responders, whether it's military or law enforcement, because I think people don't actually realize the amount of daily, drama and trauma that actually occurs in a daily shift. Now, it's definitely also interspersed with extreme boredom in writing a lot of paper and writing and documenting, and a lot of calmness, if you will. I don't know if there's, that's probably not the right word. I don't know if there's calmness. There's just more of a lull in between. It's like the adrenaline rush of being on and off, and really getting to understand the mindset of how people make decisions and what they're doing. And one of the areas that I worked had a lot of gangs in it. And so getting to understand kind of the gang mindset and why they spent time together, what they did, really was an interesting experience. And anything from being shot at, really having the understanding of knowing what it feels like to be shot at, and feeling the whiz of a bullet going by, having guns pulled on you in the alley, really having to build your instincts about how you are making very quick decisions based on what you know in the moment. And there's so many times things are like, Monday morning quarterback, where they're like, oh, if I, this was presented to me, I would do this and I would do that. It's like, well, you've got 3 seconds. What would you do in 3 seconds to actually make your decisions and do the things that you are doing? Which led to, Carrie, who I'm currently with now, my man, he was also with the department for 30 years.
Wow.
And we do a lot of teaching together. In fact, we bridge communication between communities and law enforcement, and teach de-escalation, that there's a lot of communication skills that can be had that really helps communities understand where law enforcement are coming from, and to give the officers better tools to de-escalate situations. Now, no one wants to have those situations where you have to make ultimate life and death situations or decisions, but you have to have those tools to, how is it that when you first encounter someone, how are you being, how are you, assessing what's happening to make those better choices. And so that's something that we are really passionate about, is helping in the communication and the de-escalation, and connecting with chiefs of police all over the world to make sure that their troops and teams and squads are getting those skills.
Wow. So your husband or your man, right? I don't know. Are you married? I shouldn't even ask.
That would matter.
So he was in for 30 years, and I assume he's retired now.
Yes.
Okay. And so at some point, though, along the way, you decided to retire. I mean, you worked in the gang. Did you work in like a gang unit as well, or?
I did undercover assignments with that, where we would connect, like get intel, but it was part of our patrol that we would do, where we got to do what was called 1186, where we would get to work in plain clothes to gather information for when we were on patrol. So we could do a little bit both. What was really nice when I was on is that we got to do a lot of what was called neighborhood policing, where we actually worked a lot more with the community. And they, in a lot of the communities, a lot of people think because there's gang activity in a certain neighborhood that every part of the neighborhood is bad. And it's not. It's actually some people that really care about their kids, and,
Right.
They want to make sure that things aren't happening, especially when a lot of drive-by shootings were happening back then. The Get Down series was happening, where they were taking automatic weapons into grocery stores. A lot of the gangs were doing some of that. So, you have to be on top of like who's doing what in the area, and to really make make a difference with that.
And this is in San Diego?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've never, like, that was my first time in San Diego,
Yeah.
like 2-3
Right.
weeks ago, right?
Mhm.
It was, I thought it was amazing. I didn't see any of this stuff.
You know what? And we want to keep it that way. You know, most cities actually that have a lot of things is going on, and it's interesting when it comes to reporting and things that happen. A lot of people, they really don't know what's happening, you know, a mile away from their home, and it's not that. You know, and a lot of these were also situational in the time. You know, different gangs were coming down from LA, and then they were instigating gangs that were down here, and so, you know, this was, you know, we had a gang suppression team at the time, which were making a huge difference, and a lot of the departments have been, you know, disbanding some of those things, and I think it's insane because I think there's an absolute correlation between having gang suppression teams and reduction in murder. So if you look at the cities that have high murder rates, they probably have had specialized units because of funding that have been disbanded.
Wow. That's unreal. So what, how long were you, because you're no longer a law enforcement officer, correct?
Right.
So at some point you retired. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. There's two things kind of along the lines that are kind of in the middle of my work, and I'm going to tell you about a relationship that I had in between my marriage and my current relationship.
Okay.
I'm going to start with that. And because one of the things that I talk about a lot is, where are we being undercover in our life? Because I believe that we have a private life that our family knows about, and it's our inner sanctum, our close friends and family. And we have our public life. Maybe that's our work, maybe that's our mission, the things we're doing. But I also believe a lot of us have I think actually all of us have an aspect that maybe we just don't even realize it, have an undercover life. That there's parts and aspects of our life that we don't share, that we maybe we're embarrassed, there's some shame, there's some things that happen in and around that. And I really speak to this. I talk to people about this, about seeing where that is for you, because when you know the aspects of your life where you're being undercover, you can put some light on that, you can shift that, you can have close people you talk to about that. Now, picture this. I was in a relationship for many years that looked fairly good on the outside to a lot of people, and you know, I'm either working undercover, or I'm working patrol, I'm doing things to help other people. But the undercover part of my life that I was not sharing was that I was in a fairly abusive relationship. And there was a time where in the beginning of that, he reacted very abruptly to me. And it really affected, even though that part only happened once, there was more of the walking on eggshells, shifting who I was being, and not sharing a lot of things about myself because of that relationship. And, you know, now looking back on it, I could be like, okay, here I am, an educated woman. I have a degree. I see scenarios every day where people need to have help. And I started having my own mindset around, well, you know, my relationship isn't as bad as, right? And I know that I was trying to keep things together in my own family because I'd already experienced a divorce. I really wanted to feel like I could work it out no matter what. Yeah. And so I share that because I believe that there are a lot of people, whether it's men or women, tends to see it more with women, where they're trying to keep it all together, you know, in their family, in their work, in the things that they're doing. And they don't want anyone to know some of the things that are happening, some of the decisions they're making, because it can feel embarrassing, right? I feel like, well, you know, you should have known better type thing. Or, you know, if you can't make the decision, who can? And I know for me is that some of the things that happen, especially in if you've got a pretty drama-filled work like I did, you know, each day it becomes like a little bit of eroding of being a little, excuse me, a little bit less of yourself.
Right.
And not being able to see, which in retrospect, you can look back and go like, oh, Why did you not just walk away? Why did you not do this? Why didn't you say anything? But each day in a 24-hour period, when you are taking care of kids and you're doing your work and you're doing all the things and you're seeing people who are being, shot and killed and hurt, in comparison, you're like, well, that's not that big of a deal, right?
Right.
And those are some of the mindset things that can happen in that. And so we're talking about areas of our life where we can be stuck.
Yeah.
I'm really stuck in the dream of wanting to be in a relationship that works at all costs and not looking at the nuances that were undermining who I was being, my own self-esteem, and how I was being undercover in my own life, while I was at the same time being able to help other people out in the world.
Wow, that's powerful. That is very, very powerful.
Yeah.
So you eventually you woke up to that.
I did, and
reality.
there was actually a very specific case that did that. I was in a training accident where I shattered my gun hand and all the bones in my hand. I actually had to have a 7-hour surgery where they had to kind of build my hand, and had an external fixator. I actually have 6 holes through the side of my hand.
Oh my gosh.
Where I had to relearn how to use my hand. And so that led to me transitioning out of the department. But within that first year is, moving through that first year, I was the liaison between the police department and a friend of mine who lived a mile away from me. We had played softball together, and her 7-year-old daughter had been kidnapped. And it took 3 weeks for us to find her because she had been killed. And one of the things that had happened during that case was, come to find out, it was the Van Dam case. She was taken on 02/02/02. Never forget that case. It was the last case that I had been involved in. The neighbor who had been really stalking her, and it's amazing when you think you've done everything. It really shook, not only San Diego, but became a national case because, there were a lot of things where they were really trying to find things on the parents and certain things about them. But, really, it was amazing how they had an alarm system. They had a dog. They had all these things that you think would protect, your family. And when you're targeted, you're targeted. And it really affected, my daughters and their sense of safety. And I was on the news quite a bit then, and a lot of things happening. And so this was the tail end of that relationship that, had so many obstacles in it. And I remember him calling me when I was on this case, and he just was very nonchalant because I was working on, those first 3 weeks when we were looking for her. We had a big volunteer team, and people were really supporting, the family in this. And he was calling me saying like, hey, what time's dinner?
Wow.
I was like, I'm kind of in the middle of this case right now. I'm not going to be coming home for that. And he's like, they don't need you there. You just want to be on camera, and, you really need to come home.
Wow.
And, we had so many ups and downs in this relationship. And it was like a moment from God where I was just kind of stood still in that moment. I just said, you know what? I'm not living like this. I'm not going to be in this kind of demeaning relationship. I don't want this to be the example for my daughters. I know I'm meant for more.
Right.
And I had just said, we're done. And that it took that level of that case for me to see that I'm definitely here to do something more.
What was his profession, or was he in law enforcement?
He was actually in law enforcement.
Okay.
Right. And,
wow.
It's interesting to see. It's really challenging because, law enforcement actually has the highest divorce rate profession. And, we are away from home more than we are from home. And we see things that, people don't want to see. And
right.
I was at that point, as I was retiring out, I was on a very big mission. I was learning a lot of different modalities about removing trauma from your body, about, personal growth, about really shifting the perspective on a very active level of how I wanted to be in the world.
Wow. And at this point, you're like 25. And you've gone, I don't know, however old, you weren't very old at all. And you went through a lot of crap.
Yeah.
Quick, like fast.
I did.
baptism by fire. Congratulations, right? Because it
Definitely.
brings you out and makes you something else. So
Definitely.
you eventually you got out of that relationship,
Right.
and you moved on. You well, you shattered your gun hand, which kind of mean, and you
And
said that was in a training accident.
right. So we do another aspect that we did undercover is that we would use mountain bikes to roll up on potential suspects
Yeah,
because they could hear our cars and they would scatter. So we would use mountain
yeah.
bikes to roll up on. There was what was called a 10851 series, which is stolen vehicles. And when you use mountain bikes to roll up on them to kind of thwart that whole activity. And I was going down on my bike and hit a pothole, went over the top, put my hand out, shattered all the bones in my hand. In fact, my hand was actually bent back towards my elbow.
Oh
So,
my.
yeah.
Oh,
So when I went into the emergency room, they're like, we have to snap this back or you could lose the hand.
oh my
And
gosh.
I actually have really great mobility and did a lot of,
Wow.
training and things. But if the retirement came that if I broke my hand again, they said I couldn't get any more street fights, and that if I if I broke the hand again, that I had a 33% chance of paralysis, and that was too high of a liability to keep me on the department.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah.
So you were kind of forced into retirement.
Right. Yep. Which is a God thing. I mean, we're always, I believe that I did my time. I look at it as like,
Yeah.
dog years on the department where you're ready just to move into something else. And I really took a lot of, and this is why when I work with people, they really look at what were some of those skills and those mindsets and things that I was able to ascertain on the street to be
Yeah.
able to utilize. And one of the things I had coined early on was the clutter to drama ratio, that the more clutter you had in your space, the more drama that you created in your life. And that's when
Wow.
I had, especially for entrepreneurs who are trying to do creative things in the world, there's different things that are, holding us back. And when we look at our space and the environments, whether it's the people, I look at this in my own, relationships, my personal space, who we're spending time with, what's our mindset, all of those things can cause clutter. So it's not just physical clutter, it's just how we're showing up. And so when we see those areas that are having us stuck, right,
Yeah.
then we can actually do something about that. And one of the other things I had mentioned was, or that I had coined was that creativity craves clarity. So you want to create clarity anywhere that you can, so you can be that creative person, that you can step into those things and really notice things that we're not seeing.
Vicky, our friend Vicky that introduced us. I love Vicky.
Me too.
She's like, oh my God, you're not going to believe how amazing this woman is. And I concur. You're amazing. So geez, I'm almost lost. Like, I don't know, like you've been through, and you weren't that old when you retired, or when you, is it called medical retirement?
I'm medically retired. Yes. I was 35. So I was on the department 25 to 35.
Okay. So you spent 10 years as in law enforcement, and you said something about they could hear your cars coming. I was like, yeah, there's nothing quite like the sound of that Interceptor engine in a in a cop car.
Absolutely.
Not that I would know what that means, but
Right. You'd have a call, which is like, a 459 alarm, like a burglary alarm. And you would roll down the street and it's like everybody's ghost. It's like, where'd they go? And then, right. And you start realizing like, if I just kind of turn down the corner and I either ride up on a bike or I just walk in, here's everybody. Ta-da!
Yeah. Welcome to the party. Gee, Merry Christmas. So at 35 years old, here you are, and it appears from what I can tell in your energy talking about it, you loved it.
I did. I love it was kind of a love-hate relationship, really, because I loved being in the know. Like, I loved being able to walk into a scene, see what's going on, and actually be able to do something about it. There's
Right.
something about boots on the street to actually be able to, and I take this into my work. I can walk into, a boardroom, an office, or personal entrepreneurs and look at all the chaos and mayhem that people are experiencing on their daily basis and be like, boom, I see this, this, and this. We can shift and change this right away, because you don't want to. And one of the things you definitely learn quickly in the police department is that if you hesitate, or, in your head, you're dead, right?
Yeah.
So you really have to be able to make decisions quickly.
Say that again. I want everybody to hear that.
Okay. In your head, you're dead, right? And
I love it.
what I mean by that is that, yes, we want to logically think through things. We want to look through the different processes. But when it comes to actually taking action and implementing, you don't want to stay in your head. You want to take action. You want to actually move, right? I mean, think about it. If you had some emergency happen, you had a law enforcement show up at your house and they said, let me just take 30 minutes to decide if this is a critical situation or make a decision, or you don't have time for those kind of delays. And when we look at our life that way, in our relationships and in our business and how we're being our missions, we don't have a lot of time, right? We want to be able to look at all the possibilities, have a plan, but then execute on that plan, actually make it happen. And one of the things that really brought this to fruition, because I work with just such brilliant people that have a lot of the mental capacity to make a lot of different decisions. And I remember talking to one of the women who is an executive for a big company, used to making a lot of decisions. And when she shared with me, when she's in a boardroom and she has these great ideas, she second guesses herself. She does bring it to the table because she wants to have all the details and wants it to be perfect and all these things happen. But time and time again, she realizes when she doesn't actually voice those great ideas, almost moments later, one of the other men in the room will have that same idea, right? Talk about that think space, right? Because it's in the space, whether we say it out loud or not. They say it, they get the credit, they move with it. She then feels bad. She's like, wow, why didn't I say anything? And we stay in this, analysis paralysis.
Yep.
And it's so important to just like put it out there, right? I mean, it was really challenging. In fact, one of our colleagues in the world here, Lisa Turney, who has a show, it's probably won't want to say it's a Get Effing Real in essence, right? She's one of the first people that really encouraged me to share the aspects of my undercover life, not just on the department, but in my personal life, to really show people that, you don't have to have it all figured out. It doesn't have to always look perfect. And, because I'd have people like, oh, well, it's easy for you, right? And it's like, what? I've been a single parent. I've been on the street. I've been, in, fights in my work and in my personal life. And I know one of the things that I know for sure is that we have to trust ourselves and in the moment and to just move through that. And it's so much more freeing, which is really how it came about. The name of, another coin that I had was with Spa Life, which is my show, Live Your Spa Life. That's on my podcast, is that the SPA is for Seek Power Always. And that power, and some people don't like that word because they feel like they think of it in terms of people abusing power. But I look at that power it's that power within you, that you are your own power. Power doesn't happen outside of yourself. We may allow things to happen. We can have victim experiences, but we don't have to operate as a victim. And it's so important for us to really access. We have so much inner knowing that we maybe discount, or we think that other people know more than we do. And I feel like most of the time with my clients, it's really a mission to really come from that wisdom. And we have so much life experience that no one has seen it from the vantage point that we have. And we all have so much to offer.
Wow. So many thoughts run. I should be taking notes, but I hate taking notes because I feel like I'm missing the moment. Right. So, but you reminded me of something I read. Dr. Wayne Dyer wrote about something, and I've seen it in other like spiritual books. And that's the 100th monkey syndrome, where you're talking about that energy of thought is in the room. that when you have an idea, act now, go, right? And
Right.
I'm actually speaking in Vegas this month, and it's a blessing. I was asked to speak at this conference, and so I'm going out, and my entire speech is about making a decision, like deciding, right, and executing, like now, right now. Stop putting it off. And I love that because, and I've used this example, I'm sure you have. Have you ever walked through a store and seen a new product or something and went, I thought about doing that like 10 years ago, right?
Absolutely.
The energy's out there. The thoughts already exist. You don't originate your thoughts. They come from somewhere else. That's my theory, right? But
I'm with you on that. I believe that we are these vessels where, things move through us.
yes.
And where that is from a spiritual or universal energy or God or what that is for you, there is definitely something bigger that gathers all the different possibilities in the world and chooses you to move through you. Because I mean, how many times have you been, and I'm so amazed when this happens, when I will be consulting with someone and all of a sudden I just kind of almost step out of my own way and things just start flowing through me. And I'll be like, who said that? Like, where did that even come from? Like, I don't think I could even create that if I wanted to. And just really coming from that place of allowing and having that happen, moving things happening, for you, right?
Yeah.
Things happening to you. And you are just really being that mirror and you're allowing that to happen. And it's so important. And I really did, bring this from my police experience, is that to make a decision and then pivot, right? You can see what happens and then you can move, because there would be times where, let's say an emergency is happening, right? And you've got to get into a home right now. Like it's a life or death situation.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be like, oh, I'll try the front door. Sorry, it doesn't work. I'm just going to leave. That decision didn't work. No, you go through a window, you go around the back, you figure out a way, you make it happen. It may not be the original way you thought it was going to happen, but you do make it happen. And it's funny because sometimes we think someone else is going to make it happen, or that we aren't standing in our own power, that's what that is. And I have a funny story I had kind of early on in my career where I actually worked a lot. I was what's called the area I worked was called 318 John, and I was a single unit. And so because there were certain units that had to have somebody cover, I'd have a lot of the K9 officers that would cover me. And it's a whole kind of different story. And I'm hoping things have evolved more in the departments. But one of the reasons why I rode alone was that my sergeant pulled me in the room when I first started into his office and said, hey, the wives and girlfriends have asked me to not have you ride with their husbands. And so he said, I'm going to have you ride by yourself. And I'm sure that's not like okay now in these days and times, but okay, I guess that's how we're going to roll here.
Wow.
So I was going to a domestic violence call, and my cousin had actually gone on a ride along with me. And if you can just picture my cousin, she's like in a fur coat and her heels, and one of the older cell phones, and she's walking where there was like these 3 levels of stairs that we were walking up to, and I was just talking with the K9 officer as we're walking up, and she's with us, and as we're getting closer you could hear like more things happening, something's hitting against the wall and things are crashing and all these things are happening. And, we're walking up and we're, talking about how we're going to set our tactics and what it's going to look like as we get up there. And all of a sudden my cousin pulls out her phone and she starts dialing on her phone as we're walking up towards this critical call. And I'm like, who are you calling? And she's like, I'm calling 911. And like, we are 911. We have to deal with this. And it's funny when you think about it, but it's also something I share with my clients, because you know what? You are the solution, right? You are the one that makes it happen. It's not like you're going to have a lot more time to decide and figure it out. It's like you just have to step into it and just be the solution. And that's when I talk about Spotlight, about, seek power always. The power within yourself is that you are that power. You are that answer. And you just have to give yourself permission to access it and act on it. And if it's wrong, it's okay. Pivot.
Wow. See that's so powerful. And what an awesome story to use as the metaphor too. That's incredible. But that's what like you being in the position of, being in law enforcement and the thousands of calls or incidents that you've been involved in or seen, and deaths and murders and rapes and drug dealing, everything, that puts you in a pretty unique position to be able to give back and help the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now, and I cannot see, an hour goes so fast. It's insane. We have like 13 minutes left. But now here you are, you're doing some amazing things. Why don't you talk a little bit about, and I think you were going to give everybody that's watching a free little gift, which is amazing of you. We can get to that, but I'll let you disclose as you go, but talk a little bit about what you do now.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Ken. So really, most of what I do now is consulting. So, there are people that want me in their corner to see the things that they're not seeing, to help them make quicker decisions, to really, not only from accountability standpoint, but to give themselves permission to do some of the bigger things that they want to do. I mean, we can get so stuck in the minutia of life. And so to really do that really supports people. And, it's interesting because I don't really put a lot of labels as far as, what I do or what the name of that is, because I've actually had somebody, this is so wild, Ken, who heard me on a podcast and lives in another country and connected with me. I think he sent me a Facebook Messenger and just said, I need you to be my spiritual advisor.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, I'm not sure what that'll look like, but okay. And I do consulting with him, and it's just amazing. He has, several, businesses that he does. And, I could actually see the things that he wasn't seeing where he was in his own way. And it has shifted things for him, not only in his business, but in his relationships, right? Because I can see how certain decisions impact family. I mean, not only from my own personal experience, but when you are in thousands of homes and you see how certain things impact, it's really helpful in doing that. And then I have another client who she flies me into her team quarterly because she likes me to be able to deliver information to her team that she doesn't want to do. So she's like,
are you packing?
It's really funny. I go, okay, so I have to be bad cop for your team. And Carrie actually comes with it. Usually he's good cop and I'm bad cop, where it's like, okay, everybody knows the elephant in the room, what's going on here right now. We're going to be making some changes, and we're going to be pulling the Band-Aid off here.
Wow.
So really being able to look at it from those different perspectives. And so
you guys play good cop, bad cop.
Oh, yeah. It's
oh my God, the irony. So,
I know.
Wow, that's crazy.
I know, right?
So you do a lot of consulting and see, that's again your experience. And I think, if I may point out a couple of things, I think that you doing what you're doing, like a lot of people would have shattered their gun hand, left on a medical retirement, and crawled into a hole somewhere and kind of not given up, but you know what I'm talking about. And I know people like that, and I'm sure you do as well. And you didn't do that. You chose to use your experience to empower others.
Right. Ken, I mean, I can never be in the shoes of someone else. And I know that there is a lot of reasons on why people want to move away to remote areas after law enforcement because of what they've experienced. We've lost a lot of friends, even one as recently as last week to suicide. It's a lot to live with some of the things that, that we've seen, to see, one of the first people that I saw die was a 13-year-old boy, and we were locked eyes, and to be in the presence of someone having such tragic things that happen, and so many things that can be preventable, and just the responsibility that comes from all of that. And I really do kind of live with the tenet of to whom much is given, much is expected.
Yeah.
And I really believe that because of my experience and so many other people out there, I mean, I my hat's off to anyone who's in a profession of service where they put their own life on the line to help others. And I think it's so important that I think, particularly in first responder positions, realize how short life really is, because we really do see it on a daily basis. And even if and it comes in stages, there could be days or weeks that you aren't seeing it, but then there's streaks where you see somebody die every day, right? Yeah. And it's an amazing experience of life and humanity and reality. And so for me, it's a big catalyst of that, not having those things happen in vain. That for the things that we get bogged down as entrepreneurs and as parents and things that, sometimes we get so in, laser focused into the minutia of things that we're not focusing on the things that actually move the needle, that actually move us forward. And so just having the perspective to like, what, if we're here for this blip, what do you want to do with it? Like, what's it actually look like? And I think it's important, and it's part of our responsibility to find out what that is for us. And I'm not saying hey, get into a first responder business. I'm saying whatever you're doing, be the first responder of that, right? The buck stops with you. You're not waiting for everyone else to approve of it. You're moving forward with the things that you've been, guided to do, the things that you are meant to do. And that's where I think just having some checklists that help too. And that's where, and this is part of what I'll give to the audience here, is I've got, resetyourpowergift.com. And we can put that in the show notes as well. But it's resetyourpowergift.com. Okay. And part of that is we can reset our life at any time, right? No matter what happens, we can have things that really take the breath out of us, whether we've gone through.
Reset Your Power Gift?
Yes, resetyourpowergift.com. Okay. And that is a very simple 5 moves to step into your power. Like where are you giving your power away? What do you need to change? What do you need to do? I mean, just to have a quick checklist and to kind of do an inventory of what's working and not working really allows us to step into that and to make that difference that we are here to make. And, life can be challenging. I mean, no one said it was going to be easy. I mean, I think sometimes in this world of instant access, that we think that everything's going to be easy. And that doesn't really allow us to grow or to challenge us. And then when we can actually be in the face of challenging things and see what's in this for me, like what is how can I utilize this to, make an impact for the better? When we utilize it from that perspective, then we know these things aren't happening in vain.
I just saw one of my law enforcement buddies just join the stream. So you're in good company. So I'm completely blown away. I mean, I'm just going to be honest. Because I lie all the time. I hate that. I hate it when people say, I'll be honest with you. I'm like, why are you lying to me every other time? But like, I wasn't expecting this. I was not expecting this, and I'm literally blown away by you. You're amazing. And thank you for your service too. And your man, thank him for his service. I as you know, I love law enforcement and first responders. I've done a lot of work to help here in Ohio with some stuff. So I'm very, very grateful for law enforcement. And it's probably because of my alcoholism days. One of my detective buddies says, you just have post arrest disorder or something like that. I'm like, dude, maybe, but I had a different life before, but I think that what you're doing is amazing. And you see it, I see it out on social media. There's a lot of people that hate on coaches and consultants and I actually saw a post about it this morning, and I was like, I have a coach and I've had multiple coaches and consultants over my career. I think that, it's really, really good to have somebody that can be objective, look at your situation, assess it, and somebody with like experience that can say, dude, here's where you're screwing up. If you just make this one little tiny tweak right here,
Absolutely.
It can change the trajectory of your entire life, right?
Right.
But sometimes we're so stuck in it. I've been there where you're so focused on the problem that you can't see the solution, and it might be right there next to you, right?
Absolutely. It's so important to have trusted advisors around you in your space. I mean, one of my favorite quotes by Les Brown is, you can't see the big picture when you're in the frame. When you're in it, you cannot see, around you, above you, through you. And sometimes it's the most obvious things. You may have people on your team that are telling you certain things, but if you don't have someone on the outside that can see the things that you guys have maybe become, numb to, then you're missing the mark.
Wow. I love that quote. Les Brown's awesome too.
Yeah, great guy.
Listen, I know you've got another commitment that you've got to get to. I think everybody that's stayed on here and watched for the whole thing is probably just as blown away as I am. Excuse me. Thank you. I could talk to you all day. And I'm sure your stories. I mean, we didn't even. There's no way we scratched the surface.
No, there's definitely others there. So if anyone on listening, here's just one aspect, and there were a lot of times where I didn't share some of my stories, especially my personal stories behind, because there is that little part in your head. In fact, I always say that your mind is a bad neighborhood. Don't go in there alone. Because there is those aspects where it's like, well, who are you to share this? And other people have had worse things happen, or just that who are you kind of thing. And I've talked to Vicki a lot about that, about the bully in your head. And it's like, it's really more from a perspective of who are you not to, right? Your perspective is unique. Your experience is unique. Your wisdom is something that people need to hear about. So when those things come up about, maybe there's, and here we are, it's a risk, right? Being on social media where there could be haters, that don't like cops, or they don't like women, or they don't like, anything that we've said. I mean, who knows, right? But it's about feeling that fear and doing it anyway. And that's where it comes down to choosing courage. And that really is a bigger part of my message, is that, we could shrink away, but choosing courage is what people really need now.
Amen, sister. I totally agree. And I think that, and you said people that don't like cops, those are people that are felons in hiding. I'm kidding. I'll tell you, I'm not a cop, but when I see people hating on cops, there's very little that makes my blood boil. That's right. That's one of them. That one gets me. Dude, what's the first thing you're gonna do if somebody's chasing you through your home with a gun?
911.
You're gonna call a cop and pray they have a gun. Anyway, so
I know. That's a whole nother story.
So listen, you're amazing. I am so grateful that you took the time to come on. And we're Facebook friends. That's awesome, right?
Definitely.
So Diane, thank you so much. And everybody she's giving you a free gift, and recount the gift one more time.
Yes, resetyourpowergift.com.
And what is it that they get?
Right. So it's 5 moves to, stand more in your power. Where are you giving it away? What do you need to shift? What do you need to look at? It gives you a framework, a checklist to really see, well, where are you doing that in your life?
That's awesome. Resetyourpowergift.com. It's up on the screen. We'll put it in as a link when we finish up. You guys all go over there, get your free gift from Diane. Diane, thank you so much. Make sure that you're all following her on Facebook, and I assume Instagram and LinkedIn, everywhere. Follow Diane and reach out to her. It looks like she could definitely help you. So thank you, Diane. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ken. Talk to you soon.
Don't hang up yet. I'm going to end the broadcast. Thank you all for listening. Thank you. I've seen a bunch of people share this out, so thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. And you guys have an awesome, awesome day, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.